Afternoon, we are reading Bat and the Waiting Game. This story is by Elena Arnold and pictures are by Charles Santoso. We're on chapter 3, titled Parts. The next day was Saturday, and since it wasn't an every other weekend, Bat got to spend the whole day with Thor. On every other weekends, Dad picked Bat and Janie up when school was finished on Friday and took them home to his apartment. There were good things about every other weekends. Dad liked to go on bike rides. Dad had a small garage, which he kept neatly organized, and it was a good place to build things. There was a workout room at Dad's apartment complex that Bat wasn't old enough to use yet, but would be one day. But especially since Thor had joined the family, Bat wasn't really a fan of every other weekends, because Dad wasn't a fan of animals. Mom, on the other hand, was almost as crazy about animals as Bat was. In a lot of ways, Mom and Dad were opposites. Mom liked animals, Dad didn't. Mom worked as a veterinarian, Dad worked as a computer engineer. Mom liked to stay at home on the weekends reading books and gardening. Dad liked to go out into the world on weekends, bike riding and playing catch at the park. Bat liked animals and he liked computers too. He liked to stay home and he liked to go out into the world. And his name was even made up of parts of both of his parents' names. Bat was short for Bixby Alexander Tam. Bixby from his mom's last name when she was a kid, Alexander because that was his dad's middle name. Bat liked that he had parts of both his parents' names in his name. It made sense since he had parts of both of his parents and the rest of him. He had his dad's straight black hair, which came from his dad's Chinese ancestry, and he had his mom's long fingers. He had his mom's love of chocolate and his dad's aversion to touching yucky things. When Bat woke up on Saturday, the first thing he did after going to the bathroom and washing his hands was scoop Thor out of his enclosure and tuck him into the sling. Thor was getting bigger, Bat thought with satisfaction. His little belly had started to round out from all of the formula Bat had been feeding him. Bat was a good skunk caretaker. The kitchen was quiet. Mom and Janie were still asleep. Carefully, Bat poured a kit-sized serving of formula into Thor's tiny bottle. He screwed the lid on tightly and then held the bottle under warm running water so the formula wouldn't be cold. It was a beautiful day, Bat saw through the window above the kitchen sink. The leaves on the tree were quiet, no wind, and the sky was a clear, bright blue with just a little bit of violet still from sunrise. "Would you like to dine al fresco?" Bat said to Thor. Al fresco was an Italian word for outside. Bat knew because on sunny days at school, his teacher, Mr. Grayson, sometimes said, "Hey gang, let's do reading time al fresco." Bat took the bottle and went out through the back door, sitting on the brick steps that led down into the yard. Thor must have smelled breakfast because he was rustling around in the sling. Gently, Bat scooped him out and settled him on his lap. 6 weeks ago, when Thor had just been born, his nose had been pink, but now it was darkening to a nice shiny black. It twitched up at the bottle and Bat aimed the bottle down. Thor's tongue darted out, and soon he was happily lapping up the formula drop by drop. Bat liked it when he could concentrate on just one thing, and he liked it even better when the one thing he was concentrating on was something he loved, like taking care of Thor. With his thumb, Bat gently stroked the white strip of fur that ran up Thor's snout and over his head. Thor closed his shiny black eyes, and it looked to Bat like he grinned. Short, milky whisker hairs curving upward. The back door opened, and Bat turned to see Janie standing in the doorway. Her hair, which was not quite as dark as Bat's, was wrapped around a bunch of spongy pink curlers. "Hey," said Janie. "Hey," said Bat. Janie came the rest of the way outside and sat down on the step next to Bat, peering down at Thor. "He's getting cuter," she said. "He's getting furrier," said Bat, "but I think he's always been all the way cute." Janie made a noise halfway between a grunt and a snort. Then she said, "When is he going to start spraying?" "That depends," Bat said. He set down the empty bottle and tucked Thor back into the sling. Skunks only spray if they feel threatened. If Thor never feels threatened, maybe he'll never spray. "I guess you'll have to try really hard to stay calm, huh?" said Janie. "Even if I tease you or tickle you?" She lifted up her hands and wiggled her fingers. Bat hated to be tickled. "Don't," he said, but he tried to say it in a really calm voice because he didn't want to make Thor nervous. Janie laughed. "Just kidding, Bat," she said. "Hey, do you want to help me take the curlers out of my hair?" Bat liked to help Janie with hair stuff, and she barely ever let him. Okay, he answered. Just let me put Thor away first. Then chapter 4 is called A Stinky Joke. After breakfast, Ezra came over to help Janie practice for her big audition. Janie thought Ezra was hilarious, but usually Bat did not agree. Hey, Batty, Ezra said when he arrived. I've got a joke for you. Okay, what do you call a flying skunk? Actually, Bat said, skunks can't fly. They're mammals, and the only flying mammal is A smellicopter, Ezra interrupted. Then he laughed loudly at his own joke. There were so many things wrong with the whole situation that Bat felt himself starting to rise up on his toes, the way he sometimes did, and pulling his arms close to his sides, the way he sometimes did, hands preparing to flap. Ezra laughed even louder. Hey, he said, you're the flying mammal, right? Because you're Bat. Good one, Batty. Come on, Ezra, Janie said, and Ezra followed her out of the entry hall and toward the kitchen, still laughing. When the hallway was quiet, Bat remembered to take deep breaths, and he let himself bounce on the balls of his feet 10 more times before putting his heels on the floor. He wiggled his shoulders around the way that helped him relax, and his arms dropped slowly to his sides. Little Bat, crooned Mom from behind him. Are you all right? Bat nodded. He didn't feel like talking. Mom came around to his front and held out her arms. She knew that Bat sometimes didn't feel like being touched when he was upset, and this was her way of letting him know that she was there if he wanted a hug. All he had to do was take one step forward, which after a moment's hesitation he did. Mom pulled him close, and Bat closed his eyes as he let his face mush into the softness of her stomach. He felt the snug tightness of her arms around his shoulders and back, the gentle, firm pressure of her embrace. He felt safe and warm, and he let himself take a long, deep breath. Mom smelled of rosemary like sunshine and peppermint and pine. Bat took another deep breath before he tapped his hand against Mom's leg, their sign that he was ready for the hug to be over. She loosened her arms and stepped back. Are you gardening? Bat asked. Yes, Mom said. Do you want to help? Yes, said Bat, and then he had a really good idea. Mom, he said, do you think we could research what kind of vegetables skunk like to eat and plant them in the garden box in the backyard? He looked up at Mom's face, excited. I think that's a great idea, Mom said. A research project, and maybe you could ask Israel if he'd like to help. And then Bat had another idea. We have to do a spring project for school, he said, and we're supposed to have a partner. Maybe Israel's and my project could be researching and growing a skunk garden. You'd better not plant any roses, said Ezra. He and Janie had just walked back into the hallway on their way to the front yard. Get it? Because roses smell good. Oh, Ezra, Mom said, that joke really stinks. That time, everyone, even Bat, laughed. And that is the end of chapter 4. And chapter 5 we'll read on Monday is titled Almost Late. Have a great weekend.